We get a chance to talk to a new friend of the show. I've gotten a chance to talk to him on a couple of occasions. Let me do the introductions
Sure,
here.
yeah.
Joe Lynch, by the way, is the host of the Logistics of Logistics. He is absolutely a terrific company. But you said it too. It's a bumper sticker. It's a great bumper sticker. Let's treat drivers like brain surgeons. Guys, you should check him out. He's over on YouTube, just like we are, at the Logistics of Logistics. Find him there. Find him wherever he is actually happening. Joe, welcome aboard. It's great to have you. Finally get you on the air. How you doing, man?
Thank you so much for having me. Hey, great. Thank you so much for having me, guys. Jimmy, I know we talked before. I'm glad I finally got on the show.
We're glad to have you.
And Dave, I'm honored. Thank you guys both so much for having me on.
Well, thank you for being with us. I'm reading your bio and everything, like I should have. I was intrigued by something that I want to kind of go to before we talk about brain surgery and truck driving. You've done a lot of things, but I'm going to really cut to the chase here. Among other things, you were a lean process expert as well as an automotive engineer for Jeep in Thailand, in China, and here in the U.S. I looked it up, but I'd like you to tell our listeners what a lean process expert does, because I had never heard that term before until I looked it up because of you.
Oh yeah, lean is super important, and it kind of originated in automotive, and it I think the Japanese automakers who really built a big lead in the 80s, they in the manufacturing efficiency. They said we got it from Henry Ford. So anyway, what lean basically in a nutshell is from the time you get the order to the time you get paid, order to cash, let's take out every step that is unnecessary. And sometimes in automotive you're talking 18 weeks, from the time I order a part to the time I get it and get paid for it. And so you're just looking for inefficiencies. You're looking to speed up the process and make, and by the way, when you take out steps, oftentimes you can improve the quality at the same time. We always heard that thing where you want it faster, better, cheaper. Pick two. Well, the automotive companies have shown you could do it. You can do all three with lean. So I'll get off my.
And you were the guy.
Well, there was many of us. That's a tough business. And by the way, I think a lot of truckers probably are either, actively involved in that or maybe cursing it under their breath, depending on the day.
I want to kind of give a follow up, and then and like I said, this will actually tie into, I think, your overall thesis is the fact that any successful owner operator, one who really is and let's make this really clear, a genuine owner operator, a guy who owns his, as we were saying earlier, his own authority. Is a person who actually, to some level or degree, he or she has to practice lean, do they not? Because they are looking at those three things and seeing if they can do it, all three of them, at the same time and still succeed. And the ones that are really successful, owner-operators, people who own small businesses, often have so much to balance that you actually think they deserve a lot more respect than people actually understand that they're getting, particularly given how many small businesses there are in the trucking industry. How'd I do?
No, I love it. I think you're dead on, and it's a crazy hard business. I will also say, guys, I try and stay in the shallow end when we get into the nuts and bolts of trucking. I've I've worked at a trucking company, but I've never driven a truck, and I always joke that I talk about it. That's what I do.
Well, me too.
Welcome to the club. I mean, a few of us have been behind the wheel of them, but not enough to call ourselves a genuine truck driver. But it does give us a perspective, and it allows us become ambassadors for truck drivers as well, because I can't tell you the number of people at cocktail parties, like, well, you're just talking to guys about driving a truck? And I'm like, I'm like Dangerfield and Back to School. Man, you just left out a lot of things. Can you kind of unpack the idea of why we should treat them like brain surgeons?
Well, yeah. First off, where I came from in the lean, when I was doing lean, one of the things that I recognized was there was opportunities in the transportation area. How can we make this better? And sometimes, I'm in the Detroit metro area. sometimes you go, why is this thing happening way over in Nebraska? Nothing against Nebraska. Can't we get a facility closer to Detroit? So we'd always kind of find ourselves in that, but that's what led me into logistics. So when I left automotive 15 years ago, I got into logistics, and I fell in love with the industry. But one of the things that I talk about quite a bit on my podcast is how we treat the drivers. And now I'm very sensitive. Every time I drive anywhere, I stop at truck stops and I talk to people. On my podcast, I've interviewed a number of drivers. We're not treating them right in all cases. I mean, sometimes there's drivers, I'm sure there's many listening right now, who say, it's a good life, I like it. But there's a lot of other guys who aren't being treated right. And anyway, getting to the point. A few years ago, a guy comes on my podcast, Mark Elcori. He owns a company called AI Fleet, and he's a techie. So he's a tech guy. And he created this software, and he said, I want to get more miles for the drivers. I want, and I said, well, why don't you just create software and sell it to trucking companies? He says, that's what we planned. He said, but, we've always had these optimization softwares. And he said, not always working. And then he's the one who said this to me. He said, Joe, what if you and I ran a surgery center? I said, yep, brain surgery center. Got it. We have 10 surgeons working for us. And the way we would run that surgery center, and by the way, I think Dave, Jimmy, we would do the same, say, I'm going to have those guys do nothing but surgeries. They're going to come in the morning, no meetings, no paperwork. I'm going to have that streamlined. I'm going to have their life planned out. If 10's the maximum surgeries you can do a day, we're going to do 10 surgeries every day. And the reason we do that is because these guys get paid $500,000 a year or more. I don't know what they get paid, a lot. But then when we come over to the drivers, how do we treat them? And you go, well, we don't treat them like that, but maybe it's because they don't make $500,000. But the truck isn't worth anything. It's an anchor unless the driver's in it on the road. And that was an epiphany for me. I was like, yeah. By the way, in Lean, where I came from, a machine that can make you money every hour that's sitting empty is a sin. Yeah, we do it all the time to the driver. I live by a Tractor Supply, and when I walk by, I talk to some of the drivers. I'm shocked at how much time we waste for those guys.
I'm letting that land for a second here. We're not like, there wasn't a pause of like, what do we say next? It's like, that's one of the hardest, most difficult things to understand is that if you think as a shipper or a receiver, if you think as a consumer that you're in agony waiting for the next great thing to arrive on your dock, to leave your dock, or to arrive on the shelf, then you have only an inkling of an idea how the driver feels when he or she is waiting. Correct? I mean, that's the biggest thing. And, and we've talked to Dean Croak about this. We've talked to Brian Wiebold about this.
Dean's great. I've talked to him, too, about this.
Yeah, and, he does a regular thing with us every other Tuesday on the show when he joins us. And this is the problem, is the fact that a lot of people, and you really are emphasizing this, don't begin their thinking with the driver. That's really the biggest problem, it seems to me, is that it all should begin not with rates, not any place else, but okay, are we taking care of the people that are actually in these trucks? Yep. And
yeah,
go ahead.
There's another point in here, and I don't know how to solve this one, but we don't optimize around the drivers. The driver has a constraint that he can only drive so many hours in a day, and yet we optimize around when the docks open and close. And you can say, well, they're the customers, but if we're going to do a better job for the drivers, I think we got to get to a place where you say, I don't care if those guys get here at 10 o'clock at night, we'll be open at 10 o'clock at night. It makes no sense that I'm beyond that Tractor Supply. I see those guys park at 9 o'clock at night, and they're sleeping in their truck, which is not easy. And then I see them in the morning, and I say, what are you doing? Waiting for hours. And I go, where do you live? Ohio. This guy lives an hour and a half away. Makes no sense.
Or he's sitting there waiting for them to call him on the CB radio, so he can't really go to sleep or anything because he's on call. And something that I mentioned a little bit earlier, we were talking about being a diesel mechanic as opposed to something else. And electrical HVAC came into play, and I saw a local air conditioning service company's truck the other day, and on the back there was a little sign for they need techs, everybody does, and it says Monday through Friday, no on call. And I thought, whoa, look at that, man. That's the thing that'll get somebody to go to work for them. To your point, really, it's kind of a roundabout way to make your point, but you're absolutely correct.
No, you're spot on, Dave. Because what if we lived in a world where the people who actually had to do the lumping, the people who actually had to do the unloading, were the ones on call?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine
we
having
should have some of that by now, and because the technology is getting much better at tracking and tracing and predicting when the driver's going to get there.
Yeah, and I mean, and the idea that it's like, we went through the COVID crisis, and one of the only few good things to come, well, there's a lot of good stuff to come out of it in regards to technology and innovation. But we had General Nicholson on. Remember the article in the Atlantic? He went to work. He was actually hired by this logistics firm, a part of which included Kroger as part of their operation, and they actually, he was supposed to be just a leadership consultant as a vice president. Well, he had been in charge of doing the toilet paper supply in Afghanistan. And they were like, General, what do we do? And they turned to him and suddenly had a very different job. And a lot of people figured out that they could convert old warehouses in downtown areas and eliminate a lot of the need to actually, keep the trucks rolling in that way, but actually to make them shorter. And if we can figure out that about how to get people toilet paper faster, we can certainly figure out some way to make sure that these men and women aren't waiting around forever. It just seems to be like, and the other thing is, you took me on a tangent here, Joe, but the other problem is the fact that I always feel like rather than trying to figure out how to fix the problem, they're trying to figure out a way to eliminate the driver altogether. And I think it's what the big it's what the big push behind these AVs are, which is like, can I just get these pesky human beings who actually have to figure all this stuff out of the way so I can go back to making money? But at some point you say, who's buying all this stuff that you're selling supposedly? And it just opens up so many questions and so many deep concerns about how we're treating these people, right?
And we are going to get rid of these pesky human beings one day with the autonomous trucks, the robot trucks. And Joe, when the autonomous, the future was yesterday. So when we first heard about autonomous trucking, my joke was, the headline reads, 3.5 million truckers out of work by next Thursday. Because that was the hype. Right. That was the hype.
Yes.
But as you point out, the driver's role is going to evolve. It's already evolving. So it's not like here today, gone tomorrow. It's here today, but doing something a little bit different tomorrow. Am I right on track with that?
Yeah, and let me bring in the cargo theft into this for just a moment. I'm sure you guys talked about it.
We did this morning.
If we were to start the industry over today and say, what should this role be for these drivers? We would say, okay, they're an ambassador for our company. They're going to deliver to our customer. So I want them to be pleasant. Obviously, I want this to be a good situation for him. I also have, if I'm moving drugs or Xboxes or phones or auto parts, it doesn't matter. It's expensive and it gets stolen. And the idea that you would put somebody in there and say, hey, how do we just keep cutting costs on this guy? Make him sleep in the road. I mean, what do we care? And I think it's a big mistake. And by the way, meanwhile, I have the 2 daughters, and they're saying, I want to make sure all my clothes come from fair trade countries. I want to make sure the guys are being treated fairly who are making these garments, which I think is nice. But what about here? What about here? What about fair trade trucking?
Yeah, I mean, it's spot on. And by the way, let me just I want to offer something, by the way. If, in fact, you think that the air traffic control industry, we'll call it an industry, or that segment of government is problematic at best these days, imagine what truck traffic control is going to be like. If in fact that day ever comes. Because everybody will tell you it is safer to fly than it is to drive. Now imagine if we suddenly start having millions of these things out there. Guess what? You'll be very surprised at how quickly people go back inside those cabs as the AV monitor.
Yeah, I said this. Somebody said on my podcast the other day. They said, we're going to replace a lot of functions with AI, a lot of the brokerage stuff. And they said, but we'll always have a manager of the AI because somebody needs to be blamed at some point.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, basically, you hit the nail on the head because essentially all a corporation is, like I always tell people, human resources is not your friend. They are the company's friends. And the idea that when new jobs are added, all bosses ever say is good, more of a line of defense so that other people go to jail for skimming profits from truck stops, and I don't, and I get to play Deshaun Watson. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go on. Please continue.
Well, if you take the blame, you need a bonus. Get a bonus to
Yeah.
take the blame.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, I think also, I'm sure you guys have talked about this also, is there are fewer children being born, and we do have a labor shortage. We're not feeling it right now today, but I keep thinking anybody who's willing to get in a truck and drive and live that life is a hard worker. And there's going to be jobs for hard workers, especially if we start bringing back some industrial business here. There's going to be all sorts of jobs in upgrading our grids and building cars. Those are great jobs where you go home every day and pay good money. And I just keep thinking, how do we compete if we don't upgrade this job?
Yeah, and Dave and I were talking about that earlier, Joe. I mean, I'm straight up. We were having that conversation, and it's like there are more options now. The slow boil of losing people to other industries is over. It is rapidly happening because we were talking about diesel mechanics, where there actually is a genuine shortage. Where I actually don't think there's a truck driving shortage, Joe. I think there's a retention problem, a massive retention problem.
Well, there's also a utilization problem. They're not driving all their hours. They're waiting around too much.
And trying to find a place to park.
Yeah, look.
I mean, all of that stuff adds up.
Oh, of course. It's again, we just aren't treating them right. By the way, I've said this. I think I said this to you the other day, Jimmy Mac. If I got in my car and drove to see you guys, where do you guys live?
Down here in New Orleans, yeah.
So that's a long drive for me. Imagine I drove all the way down there from Detroit, and I'm excited. I'm going to see these guys in person, and I got in front of your house, and I said I'm going to call Dave, tell him I'm in front of his house. I call him. I said, Dave, I think I'm in front of your house, and you said, oh, cool. I'm at Home Depot. Then I got to go to the dentist. I'll be back in a few hours. I would be like, you got a new enemy.
Yeah.
That's funny because that's what I said to Jim last week.
Yeah, that's what he did to me, man.
Drivers every day.
Yeah, he said, come
After
by.
a 10-hour drive, they go sit in the parking lot for a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like I said, and there doesn't seem to be any sort of, it's a lack of priority, too. That's the other big kind of killer is the fact that I don't know how many people are actually, and I'll tell you this, I don't know if it's true all over the place, but there's a Trader Joe's I go out to in Metairie out here where they get ready, man. The moment the trucks arrive, they are ready. And they're almost like a pep rally. It's almost like a pep rally when they get excited about the arrival of these guys. And it's from our friend Win Breeden. It's Breeden and Sons who actually are stopping over there. Yeah. But it's really this kind of crazy thing that people are like, yeah, I'll get to you when I get to you. Wait a minute, I've got to you. Now get this stuff off my truck. And it really is, it's a growing problem. But there doesn't seem to be, how do we get more people to understand this and to actually get involved? Yeah,
I think I'll throw this out there. I advised a company. They spend $100 million a year on transportation in North America. I advised them on selecting a 3PL, and they picked a great one. But they spent a few years picking them. And the first day that the new vice president of this company got the job, he was in charge of parts and service, and they also made him in charge of logistics. He called me and said, Joe, I don't know anything about logistics, but I'm now the new vice president. Help me understand what we need to do. And I said, well, the first thing I do, I drive over to one of your facilities and go out the dock. It's only an hour away from you. And by the way, it was February in Minnesota. And he called me back the next day, and he goes, we're going to kill someone. He goes, those guys are tarping, all this freight had to be tarped. And he goes, it was cold, it was windy. These guys are 20 feet in the air trying to put tarps on. They're going to fly to Iowa. And he said, we're honestly going to kill someone here. And ultimately they said that no more tarping. We're going to get some kind of stogas. And I guess my point to my blathering story is until the vice president of logistics gives a damn, There's people not being treated right at his dock. Nothing changes because it's the status quo. Everybody's busy.
A lot of undercover bosses are actually absolutely in demand, it seems like. Get your butt out there and see what's actually happening, not only to the men and women that work for you, but the men and women that work with you, because you got to hold on to those partners. Brother, we are out of time here. We're only supposed to have you on for a short amount. We don't care. We get to make stuff up as we go along here. So we can't promise us you'll come back sooner rather than later.
Well, you guys got to both promise me you'll come on my podcast. It was a pleasure.
Done.
I'm honored to be with you guys.
Done.
Already scheduled, my friend. Thank you for making time. You'll be hearing more.
Right.
You will be hearing more from Joe Lynch. I promise you guys. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. And let me take everybody through the bona fides of what we just heard, so you guys make sure you go everywhere where Joe Lynch is. Really great website, by the way. Really great website. You should check it out. It is the logisticsoflogistics.com. That is it. Simple, lean, mean, and clean. The logisticsoflogistics.com. And you can find them on the Logistics of Logistics podcast. It's really great. It's easy to navigate, both the website and the YouTube channel. Join the many people who are actually subscribing over there. They're growing. They're growing pretty darn quickly too. They got some great work over there. Big thanks to them as well.